It is 6 p.m. Calling the meeting to order, and all council are present. Please rise and join me in the pledges.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item number 4, City Administrator.
We have a number of recognitions this evening. The first one is a thank you note from Patrick and Jeannie Jang to Water Department employee Chris Graff for his assistance with a water problem they had at their residence. The second one is from Darren Bates to Water Department employee Dwayne Scognio. He was a great help during a water main break at their home, and he further states having people like him on the team must be great. The Garden Ridge Library sent a thank you note to Garden Ridge Police Department for their participation in the trunk or treat. The next one, it comes from Marilyn Winters, who was our was the election judge in the November election here in Garden Ridge, and she sends a thank you to City Secretary Marissa Spencer, Public Works Department employee Stanley George, Community and Event Center Manager Kim Ryan, as well as to the office staff. She sends her thanks and appreciation for their assistance with preparations for early voting and Election Day setup. She states that having their assistance has made her job less stressful, and she thanks the office staff for being so accommodating to all of the election workers during that early voting period. Then we received a thank you from Mr. Rod Chamberlain. He's the Homeowners Association President for Forest of Garden Ridge Homeowners Association, and the thank you is to Public Works Department employees Stephen Steinmetz, Eric Lohman, Manuel Troncoso, and Brian Horn for a job well done from the Public Works team. The city is very fortunate to have the above individuals representing not only Public Works but our city as well. Then we have a couple of employee service recognitions. The first one is Officer Corey Hackenberg for 4 years of service, and then Lieutenant Dan Bellinger for 17 years of service. That's all we have.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, lots of recognition for our employees. Appreciate everybody that calls them out when they go over and above, and they make everyone see that they really care when they're doing what they're doing out there. And then also, of course, congratulations to, actually in this case, our 2 officers for 4 and 38 years or whatever. We talked to them this morning. And it just so happens that the pictures are so current that they're not quite current to December, because they don't look like that now. But they look like that in November and the no shave November. So it's pretty funny. Next up is item number 5, citizen comment period. We have 1 citizen signed up. It's Ms. Shannon Drickta. Your mic, please. There you go.
Mana. My name is Shannon Drickta. I'm at 9380 Cinchona Trail. I wanted to update the council with information from the November 21st Comal School District Board meeting.
There was a third quarter demographic report and housing update provided by Templeton Demographics that has major impacts on the city of Garden Ridge. First, Comal School District continues to see enrollment growth due to single-family housing development. Comal was ranked second for new home closings, surpassed only by Northside ISD. The district enrollment is hovering at 25,000 already, and in 5 years is projected to be 31,718. Garden Ridge Elementary projected enrollment will be more than 900 by next year. Davenport High School will open its doors next year with approximately 780 students, but will jump to over 1,000 the following year. Growth is coming to this area to the tune of 4.4% each year in school enrollment. So how is the city going to prepare for these increased numbers? One of the biggest safety concerns, a daily concern for me as a parent, is the speed limit of FM 3009. Everyone agrees the speed limit must be reduced, but no changes are made. In November, it was supposed to be reduced to 50 miles per hour after being a mayor's project for multiple months, but no changes were made. I understand it falls under TxDOT, but is it time for individual citizens to work with state government representatives for progress? Videos of cars waiting for a somewhat safe time to cross 2 lanes of traffic would send the message of our current problem. Parents, grandparents, and soon to be around 700 teenage drivers are turning into 2-lane traffic traveling at 55 miles an hour. It's only a matter of time before we have a major accident. I'd also like to address an occurrence from the City Council meeting in November. From the city website, the City Council is composed of the mayor and 5 council members elected at large by the people. The mayor is the presiding official of the City Council. In my knowledge from my military service, a presiding officer of a military ceremony would never consider it his or her event. It is for the person being promoted or retired, something bigger than themselves. So for any one person to say it is their meeting goes against what the City Council meetings are intended to be for. There should be a collaborative effort to work towards making positive changes for the city. The city website also states you encourage citizens to participate in city government. We have an incredibly talented manager of Garden Ridge Market Days. At a previous council meeting, she was updating the strengths and the weaknesses of a city event and was interrupted. The council members who initially spoke up then provided an apology for interrupting her comments, but nothing but continued disrespect was showed from the presiding official, even insinuating she was herself disrespecting a councilwoman by using her first name. She deserves an apology, and every voice heard in this meeting needs to be treated with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only person that signed up. We'll move on now to item number 6, consent agenda. So first of all, keep in mind, council, that the idea of the consent agenda now is to help us to keep the meeting a little bit shorter than it has been in the past. But what I will tell you is there's one item in here that I would suggest that we pull, and I'll leave it up to you. But it's item letter G. It's specifically ordinance 22. Ordinance 22. After it was sent to you, there's some mistakes, both typos as well as substantive mistakes that we need to correct. The issue here is that if you approve that, we'll have to publish it and literally publish it, so it costs money to put it out in the newspaper. We'll have to publish it, and then we'll still have to correct it, and then we'll have to publish it again. So very simply, if we pull G and approve the rest of them, we'll defer G to next month. We have some corrections to make, and we'll send it back out to you within the next few weeks, within the next couple of weeks, and give you at least a couple of weeks before it shows up on, before you get it and have time to look at it before the January meeting. So I'll leave it up to you.
I move to pull item G from the current consent agenda and move it forward to consideration in January.
Thank you. I have a motion from place 5 to pull G. Any other items to be pulled? All right, again, a motion from place 5 to remove, or to pull item G. Can I get a second? Second from place 1. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And now looking for a approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item G.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I get a motion from place 3. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
From place 5, I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Councilwoman Bauer, for helping us out with that ordinance as well. Okay, moving on to item number 7, staff reports. City Administrator, ma'am.
I just have a few items to add to my report. First of all, you will note that Kim Ryan, our Community and Event Center, will be, is resigning effective April 30th. We will be looking for a replacement for that position. Also, want to remind everybody that our January regular city council meeting has been rescheduled to January the 2nd. Let's see, electronic utility billing will officially be done in January 2020. Citizens that have signed up for it will start receiving their electronic utility bills. So far, we have 261 customers who have signed up. So please encourage other citizens to sign up for electronic billing. Also, remind everybody that December 13th is also our city employee Christmas party as well, and that starts at 11:30. And on December 13th also, at 9:30 a.m., the Danville Middle School Choir and Orchestra will be here at City Hall. So if you're available and would like to attend and listen to them, please feel free to come by City Hall.
What time is that?
9:30. Friday, December 13th.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Great,
sir.
thank you. Starting right side, anything for City Administrator? Yeah, and Council, if you know anybody that you want to bring one of these things to, they're over on the table, but sign up for the e-bill, and we should be able to bump that up considerably more than 261. And then we'll start also the push to show people that the prudent thing to do is also to be on auto draft. It is good for them, it's good for everybody concerned. All right, next up is 7B, Police Report. Chief.
Thank you, sir. I would like to expand upon a few of the things that are in the report. At the top, under our city ordinance violations, want to update you that we have issued a citation for feeding our wildlife. Individual with some multiple feeders going on his lot, so we've got that taken care of and corrected, and they're now down. We also had, for the 4 crashes, the research data on that shows that 3 of those 4 crashes were vehicle deer related. One was a tractor trailer that jackknifed trying to avoid a deer, and then the other 2 were straight out motor vehicle deers. The 4th one was a rear end collision. So I wanted to update you on that. Also, there was a comment made during last council meeting that got my attention, where somebody had come up and said that a larger city, Longview, had a plan in place for urban deer hunting, and they had found a way to get around some of the laws. So I contacted Longview PD and the city and talked to the chief and some other administrators, and there is no such program going on up there. There is no way around that. They said it's just like any other area. If you've got 10 acres, the law says you can do it. He said, but all their 10-acre tracts are commercial, and they have warehouses on them, so they're not aware of any of this going on anywhere in the city of Longview. So I wanted to update you all on that, since that was brought up in open forum here, that was looked into. So aside from that, if we'll go to the slide, please. We've been talking, I have been in contact with the Comal County Engineering Office for some time now regarding the through truck traffic issues that we're dealing with, and our biggest areas being Benzile, Bat Cave, and Shanetal. So I have contacted the Comal County Engineer's Office and requested that we be allowed to put some signs up instructing trucks that we do not allow through truck traffic on those streets. The problem in the past has been our city limits on Benzile and Bat Cave are in a position to where the trucks are already committed to a path and there's no place for them to turn around. So I requested that they allow us to post signs in their jurisdiction at areas where trucks could avoid our ordinance issues and have a place to turn around or change their route. And they have agreed and come back with a counterproposal to do an MOU with the city that would allow the placement in these 3 areas that are shown on this diagram if we do the sign in accordance with the one pictured here. So that middle section of that sign that says "Notice No Through Trucks" are the signs that we currently produce for Naco Loop and another area. They're saying that they're good with that design as long as we put it on here and show that it's "No Through Trucks" ahead as a pre-warning sign, that they would allow us to go ahead and erect and maintain those in those 3 positions in their right-of-way. So I wanted to give you all heads up on that. I'm waiting on an MOU to see what it's going to say, but it looks like they're going to cooperate with us and allow us to do this to try to help curtail some of our through truck traffic.
Thanks, Chief. Starting left side, questions, comments for the chief?
No, just in particular, thank you. What I'm trying to figure out, the Batcave one in particular.
The Bat Cave we're going to do at Bat Cave in 3009 on the north end up there where Bat Cave starts.
Oh, okay.
And
Not
that
at
way,
Bat
because once they get on Bat Cave, just
Right.
like Ben's Isle, there's no
Right.
place for them
Right.
to turn around. So
And-
they're going to let us do that up there.
Okay, and what about coming off of 2252 on Batcave?
That's the one at the bottom
Yeah,
there.
that's what I'm having,
Yes.
Yeah,
Since
okay.
that strip of Bat Cave belongs to the county, I
Right.
had to get their permission for that as well.
right, I want to say thank you for that.
And we will have a 4th on Shanethal in 3009, but that's our sign that will be on our right-of-way, so.
Super, thank you.
Sir? Sir, ma'am, sir.
Yeah, I got one question. How will we be handling the trucks that are construction, like up in some of the new parts of Garden Ridge?
And that's exempt under ordinance. The ordinance allows trucks to pass through those routes if they are making a local delivery within the city. That's an exception to any of those through truck traffic.
Good. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Chief. Moving on now to Public Works, Mr. Steinmetz.
Good evening. This month, we have the report that we installed 2 new 4-ton air handlers at our rental properties. The old ones were basically from 1981, and they were well overdue needing. To report on hogs, we have trapped no hogs, but we actually have picked up 5 dead ones that were hit by vehicles on, 1 on Old Nacogdoches Loop and 4 on FM 3009 at Showaltall. And that concludes my report.
So on the right side, questions, comments for Public Works? Sir? Ma'am?
No,
Thank you very much. I will actually add, you don't have to be at the mic for this, we have 3 dogs. Do we have pictures for the 3 dogs?
That's evil, right before Christmas. Your daughter's ready for a second.
Oh, look at that one.
That's a cutie there.
That one's the one that was actually in the report, and then that one. Oh, look at that. So spread the word, everyone. We've got some dogs up there that need homes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Steinmetz.
That would be a good Christmas present for any of your friends that might.
Absolutely. Next up, Water Manager, Mr. Parsons, go ahead.
Hello? Thank you, sir. I just want to add that into the report that, that we did get a superior water rating from the TCEQ this last month, and I just wanted to highlight that. And with that, I'll send it back to you. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you. Starting left side, anything for Water Manager?
no thanks.
Well job with the Superior. We've had it for a long time, but we should never take it for granted, and appreciate all the work the Water Department is doing to make sure that we maintain that. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Library. Ms. Crossland?
Good evening. I don't really have anything to add to my report. If you have questions, I would love to answer them.
Okay, right side, questions, comments for the library?
Thank you.
Great report, great, and things are going well over there with the events, a lot of events coming up. We're doing our best to get the word out, and council, please help as well. I don't know if you're all on the email list for getting the report, but if they're not, let's make sure they are. Are they? Okay. Do you get a regular email that says what the, good, great, thank you. Okay, that's it for number 7. Number 8, city engineer. Welcome, Mr. Lackey, floor is yours. Your mic?
Smash your button down.
Your mic, the lights.
There you
Oh, it's not staying on.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor, Council. You have our report. Go over briefly. Looking forward to a meeting with TxDOT in January to further discuss proposed road plans and any issues that arise with right-of-way or utility conflicts. Continuing to work on the wastewater project along 2252. We've had several meetings over the month, and we'll continue to update you on those and any new developments that occur. The Woods of Garden Ridge, Benzal Road, we'll look at close that project out. The revegetation's complete. They'll have some cleanup items, and we can close out the CIP funding that was associated with that and move that project off the list. Blackwell Office Building, we had a meeting with the consultants and the owner on November 18th after the last council meeting, and we've had no further resubmittal since that time. Northeast Bible Church, we have the building plans. They look good, but we're still waiting for the site plans that address drainage and site improvements. And we're working on several plats that we'll be bringing forward in the future. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
On the right side, questions for engineer?
So you're averaging, what, 1 meeting a month, maybe, with the property at Tonkawa and Back Cave? I'm sorry, 2252?
This was the first meeting that we had with their consultants. We've had 3 submittals to date, and we're getting getting the information as it's submitted.
Okay, I thought last meeting there were some issues and Ms. Blackwell was here. I
Yes.
just thought more would have happened.
As we get information, we're reviewing it and responding, trying to get information. But we met on the 18th. We had about an hour-and-a-half meeting here, and they were going to get us something in a week, and we haven't seen anything. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, the ball's in their court right now with answers to some.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been at least a couple of weeks. Granted, there's holiday in there, but it's been.
We don't have a formal site plan approval. We have a variance request that we've been evaluating, and we need enough information to make a recommendation to the city. And rather than waste everybody's time and say it's not recommended, trying to get the information to have enough data to present to planning and zoning and also the council. So trying to get that worked out.
One question on item C, the drainage. What are we looking at for timeframe? Because it's about the vegetation, right?
We're going to issue a letter of final completion, where they've got to remove some silt fence, but the letter will be for final completion. City accept the improvements and close out the project. So
Okay.
next week.
Okay, so well before the next meeting
Yes.
of council, this will be closed. And council, that also means that the CIP fund itself, not the capital improvement account, but the CIP fund will be closed at that point too. We'll be able to close out the last bills, correct? Yeah, all right. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Next up is item number 9, City Commission Committee Reports and possible action, starting with 9A, Planning and Zoning. Had one meeting since the last time council met. Dr. Miller, floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. We had one meeting. We had a very, I can't say it was a productive meeting. We had an informative meeting with the representative from Freeze and Nichols. We went over some of the high points of the questions we had posed to Freeze and Nichols over the last 2 or 3 months, namely the accessory buildings / accessory structures as it relates to guests and relatives. And we got a good working, I guess, result that will work in our ordinance without too much trouble. We also looked at short-term rentals. They answered the questions about that. And basically it comes down to we can either regulate them or not regulate them. If you want to regulate them, there's some hoops we may have to jump through. But the bottom line with short-term rentals is Garden Ridge is in and of itself not necessarily a good market area for short-term rentals, so we're not going to worry about it a whole lot. The main thing we were waiting for was to see how the rest of the state and other cities were going to handle House Bill 2439 as it relates to building materials. And they came up, and the rest of the cities have come up with a good workaround. It basically comes around, is based around incentivizing some of the things that we had in our ordinance already to get the builders to use higher standard stuff. In our rewrite of the ordinance, we had anticipated relaxing some of the impervious structure requirements and relaxing some of the other requirements that Garden Ridge over the years has become known for to impede development, if you will. And we were going to relax some of those things within limits and still maintain the ambiance, if you will, of Garden Ridge. Basically, what we're going to do is we're not going to relax those things. We're going to leave them as they are and then incentivize the builders to come to meet those standards by giving them points to use higher quality materials as opposed to some of the stuff by law they can now use, okay? Basically what it comes down to is we'll have a point system. They haven't worked it out consistently, but we'll trade, if you will, some impervious cover, setbacks, things of that nature for the builders to use higher quality materials. The main thing is you have to make it so if they don't want to do any of them, they can still build, okay? And we got to make it, you got to document it in the city that the builders can't come back and bite us in the butt, if you will, and say we forced them to do it. It has to be voluntary. But I think the incentives we're going to come up with will be such that the builders are going to agree to most of them without any problem. Questions?
Over the right side, questions for Chairman.
Doctor, you all had, I think, a little bit of confusion about detached and attached structures. There shouldn't be any confusion about that. A detached structure is self-explanatory. It's not part of the main building. So like a garage or an apartment, was that ever cleared up?
I don't know if it was ever cleared up. We've been beating that horse for a while in terms of if it's connected by a sidewalk, et cetera, et cetera.
Don't let that connection via a sidewalk confuse you even more, because that shouldn't be part of what y'all are concerned about.
And
just because they have a sidewalk doesn't mean it's an attached structure.
And I agree with your assessment,
Okay.
but it's not for me to agree with you. I think it'll be up to the commission when it's presented in its final form. If we decide that it's appropriate as they present it to us, then we'll pass it on to city council And you guys are the elected officials, you guys hash it out and decide whether or not you want to accept it or not. And we'll go back to the drawing board if necessary. But, you know, we've been beating that horse for the last 2 or 3 years at least. What they did come up with is a plan by it's in here. No, I had it on this one. Basically, it came up with a plan by, if it was the, you can have so many structures per property. If it's less than 3/4 of an acre, you can have 2 structures with a limit of 1,000 square feet. If it's 3/4 to 3/4 of an acre or larger, you can have 3 structures with a limit of 3,000 square feet. And then we're going to make a third column for the properties in the city that are larger than, 2 acres or 5 acres, et cetera, et cetera. But some of the finer points you're talking about, I don't know if we came to a final conclusion on those one way or the other, to be truthful with you.
And I did not mean that y'all were confused, everybody on your commission.
Okay.
It seemed like Freeze and Nichols were confusing the issue.
They may be, but I think they're confusing the issue because they're not sure exactly what we want compared to what we have now. Where do we want to go? And that, what you said clears it up for me, but we'll see what they come back with.
Dr. Miller, thank you, and look forward to seeing what this scheme's going to be with points and voluntary compliance. It should be pretty interesting. Is there, do you know of anybody around here, any other municipalities that use a system like that?
Myself, no, but Freeze and Nichols services several other cities, and they're trying. I think what they're trying to do is seeing what other people were doing and trying to get a good composite that would fit Garden Ridge more than anything else.
Understand.
Okay.
If you find out of any, could you let us know?
Yes, sir.
It'd be interesting to see how some others are maybe have already run some of these wickets and are trying to run that to ground with.
It sounds simple to me in terms of, again, historically our impervious cover requirements have been quite strict, and that turns a lot of people away, and they have to apply for variances, and in turn we don't give them the variance for the impervious cover. But if we can loosen up those, we can get the builder to use materials that they would have used last spring, in return for giving them, extra 10% of impervious cover. It sounds like something we should be able to do if it doesn't affect drainage, et cetera, et cetera. But they're working on I guess you'd say, a chart that will incentivize those kind of things. And it may not be as simple as I think it is, but I think it's something that's going to be workable. Let's put it that way. We don't have a whole lot of residential area that's unbuilt, so it's not going to, by the time we come up with something, we may be built out. I'm worried about how it's going to affect the commercial development along 2252. We can incentivize the builders along that area without increasing the density too much. And making it look other than what we're used to seeing in Garden Ridge. That's basically what it comes down to. I'm waiting to see what they come up with for the commercial areas more than the residential areas.
Gotcha. Any react?
The other point I left out was you may not be aware that the homeowners association covenants and things actually trump the city covenants and stuff. So if the homeowners associations have stricter rules for building, they actually are enforceable, whereas the cities can't enforce the restrictions by ordinance, et cetera. So if we can get those homeowners associations in the city somehow organized, we can maintain the ambiance of Garden Ridge just by the homeowners association saying, no, you can't use those materials in our neighborhood. But again, not all of Garden Ridge is covered by a homeowners association, so there may be some gaps there.
Yeah. Considerable, actually.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
keep us posted, please.
Okay.
Any reattacks on that? Okay, sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Quarry Commission. I don't believe you had a meeting, but Chairman Holly's here. Do you have anything for us?
Yes, we didn't have a meeting this past month, and our first meeting will be in January, and so we have no significant changes with anything. The last event that we had was the ordinance being sent back to the city council for its review.
Yes. Okay. All right. Any questions for Quarry Commission? Comments? Thank you, Chairman Holly. Next up is water. Item 9C, Water Commission. Chairman Valdez,
Yes, sir.
floor is yours.
We have 3 water leak adjustments to review with you. The first one is for 19907 Wildcrest for the billing period of June 24th to July 22nd, 2019. After receiving the water bill of $6,000, over $6,000, the resident had a plumber investigate where the possible leak might be. A plumber found 1.5 inch PVC line leaking by the fence line. This leak was between the water meter and the house. A plumber repaired the line and also replaced the pressure regulator valve. Water department collected laptop readings and found a very sizable water leak between June 30th and July 9th. Their analysis concluded that it was 725 gallons per hour leakage for that period of 10 days, equivalent to 174,000 gallons in total. There was no water usage data prior to the 30th when the leak may have started. The homeowner does not walk the property line, the property very frequently, so they weren't aware of a possible leak. The Water Commission at this point recommends the water manager's proposal of credit of $3,959.58 for approval of City Council. Turn it back over to you, sir.
Is the petitioner here? And I don't believe they are. Okay. So, council, just as a reminder, since this is a new system for us, a couple of things. This is well over the threshold for either the water manager or the commission to take action, or in the situation of the commission, to recommend to the city administrator. So that's the reason this one's coming to you. And all the information has been in the package. Do you have any questions for the Water Commission? Start right side. Go ahead, sir.
The water manager is recommending an amount also,
This amount, as he said.
$39.59. And all these problems were, and they did use the water. Is there any accelerated charges on this total amount that we're trying to eliminate here in the very near future? In other words, the step-ups and, or is this a base rate for all those gallons?
So what we do is we calculate what the bill is, the bill amount, which is 325,000 gallons was how many gallons was used for the meter from the billing date. Then we were able to decipher the leak, and then through the difference of that would be the new bill rate. And once you have the new bill rate, then you add what the leak is at the lowest tier, and that combined, subtract from the original bill is the credited amount. That's how we come up with that figure. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so this is kind of an already a discounted amount.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, council, remember, that's part of the ordinance as well, is that we take, when we determine what they lost, we charge them at the lowest rate. So to ensure that that nobody else has to pay for that water, yet they're not paying at an increased rate. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Anything? Ma'am?
There was a comment in here about no reading was, I'm speaking to both of you, I guess, no reading prior to the estimated June 30 leak, is that correct?
Correct. We could only get data so far back.
So far back, right.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I'm understanding, we don't really know how long it was leaking. Or,
Correct. We only provide, we only make suggestions on the data that we have.
correct,
Yeah. So that's all the data we have.
okay. I'm just, I know we've worked really hard on this ordinance, but I'm just wondering in general, I mean, no, certainly not everyone can be expected to walk their property line, and knock wood, I haven't had, well, that's not true. We've had a leak, but I don't know. I mean, that's, I want to be sympathetic, but I also wonder, is there something we're missing? Like the expensive individual meters we did talk about, I know that's too expensive. So, that's all.
Well, and certainly that's a good point, a good question, and that's the reason why the recommendation that you'll get from the water manager, that in this case, then, ascends through the Water Commission, is based on fact, and fact only, of this is how much water very clearly went through that system, and this is the base rate for how much that water would cost. So they're not getting that water for free, and nobody would ever be so crazy as to do this deliberately, knowing they would pay the lowest rate, because they would still be paying for water. So in the estimation and the recommendation of the commission, that's why, the person's asking for a lot more than that, but with the calculations and with the recommendation for commission, it's the $39.59.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the individual way that we've talked about before, but it's just too cost prohibitive for individual homeowners to be able to essentially do what you're doing. Because if we had a device, like I check my water softener at the beginning of the month on a routine basis. Therefore, I know if I'm using way too much salt or something like that, or whatever adjustment. It's not practical for any one of us to think they're going to walk their yard, or if there is a corner that you don't see very often. I'm just wondering if in the future there's a way to help everyone. I mean, we're not done beating water to death, but but I'm just throwing it out there for the future. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. So that said, you have a recommendation from the Water Commission to give this account a $39.59.58 credit.
I move we not approve the credit.
Okay? So what I'd like to do is we'll do it in the affirmative. If there's anybody that thinks we should do the credit, we'll do the credit. And if nobody wants to do the credit, it just goes away. Instead of the okay, you're voting on a no for a yes and that kind of thing. So, you get what I mean?
So you're not accepting my motion?
No.
All right.
So if you want to let this go and don't want to give any relief to this, then we'll move on.
I move that we approve an adjustment of $39.59.58 credit.
Okay, I have a motion from place 1 for $39.59 and 58 cents credit to this to 19907 Wildcrest. Can I get a second?
Second.
I get a second from place 4. Any further discussion or questions? Right side. Left side. Okay. All in favor of giving this account a $39.59.58 credit, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have place 3 with a no and all else with a yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Chair Valles, go ahead and do the next one.
Okay. The next one is 21-319 Forest Water Circle. This is for the period of July 24th through August 22nd. The resident heard water running in their living room when there shouldn't be any water running. They immediately turned off the water supply to the house until the leak of the water source had been identified. The plumber came out, found a slab leak, and worked for about a week to repair it. He actually found this leak before he got the water bill. The water bill confirmed, that he did have the high excesses. The water department did analysis of the laptop reading and confirmed the water leak of 48,000 gallons, 48,240 gallons actually. And the Water Commission supports the water manager's proposal of $571.18 to be approved by City Council.
Council, do you have any questions on this one? Start on the left side.
No, thank you.
Ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a pretty good sized water bill for $571. Sometimes that must have been a shock for this individual. I will move to approve the water manager's proposal of $571.18 be credited to the bill.
Before, and forgive me, I'm going to tell you that is this petitioner here? I want on for the record, this petitioner's not here, okay. So I have a motion from place one for $571.18 credit to 21319 Forest Water Circle. Can I get a second?
Second that motion.
Place five with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have place three with the no, place 1, 2, 4, and 5 with the yes. Thank you. Go ahead, sir, with the third one.
Third one is 9331 Gardenia Bend Drive for the period of July 24th through August 22nd, 2019. The resident was out of town from June 2nd through August 27th. The mail was forwarded to him during the time he was out of town. He had high water bills all 3 months. After returning home, he found out that there was a storm that came through the area in June, and then with further inspection of, he had an irrigation company come inspect his equipment and found the control panel box circuit board had been fried, possibly due to lightning strike during the storm. He believed that this was the cause of the irrigation system overwatering his yard, equipment malfunction per se. The water department analysis, the laptop reading did show excessive use of irrigation, and also showed there was no water leak because there was a lot of zeros in the data. The Water Commission not have any basis to recommend a credit, and therefore is forwarded to the City Council for further consideration and action.
Okay, so to be clear on this one, since there's no data, the Water Commission didn't have, so is there any recommendation at all?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, is the petitioner here? Okay, petitioner, for the record, is not here. Council, if you have any questions for the commission or for the water manager, starting over on the right side.
No. Okay, I have a question. We've just given away almost 200,000 gallons of water for little to no cost. What has changed from a month or two ago? Why are we now approving water leak variances?
Well, we didn't have a leak adjustment process prior to this, so that's one thing.
So we have a leak adjustment process, but council's still making this decision.
Correct, yes, Water Commission
I
could
thought
not
that
make-
was going to be eliminated.
Sir, I'm going to interrupt here.
Go ahead, Mayor.
In the ordinance, there are tiers for this. For the lower amounts, the water manager can do it, and all he will do is report to you that he's done it. Then the middle level, the Water Commission will, in essence, approve it, but since a commission can't make the final determination, they make a recommendation to the city administrator, and the city administrator will make that call. If it's approved, you then get a report on that. If it's above that threshold, and it's, and off the top of my head, help me out, 200, water manager, what are the numbers?
For the water
250,
manager, it's 250. For the-
500?
500.
250, so if it's over 500, then both of those, the water commission, or the water manager and the commission will make recommendations forwarded to the council for over $500. That's why you're getting these. Now, this one, the water manager cannot make any recommendation without any facts. So if he can't get a meter reading because it's happened too far in the past, he can't make any determination. And all of this is in the ordinance. This is the ordinance that you all approved. So that's the reason why these are coming to you. Not every one of the leak adjustments will come to you. And not every leak adjustment has come to you. There's been some that have already been determined without coming to you. And it's in the water manager's report that a leak adjustment, albeit a much smaller one, was handled by the first or second level. That's the reason why you're seeing some of these now.
Well, I have a real difficult time then understanding how on council we can sit here and give the water away, which is basically what y'all have just done.
And again, for the record, I think that's a matter of perspective, because the water is not being given away for free. It's being charged at the lowest rate, which is another reason why it took us so long to even get to this point, because we needed to ensure we knew what did it cost. Because we didn't want people to be charged at a rate that was less than what it was going to cost us, operating expenses, everything considered, and then that in essence would be water that somebody lost that would be funded by their neighbors. And in this case, that's not happening now, because at that lowest rate, it's paying for the water.
Okay, so in our first example, the first motion that we made, we had a $6,000 bill and we credited $3,900. You mean that we've taken over 2/3 of that bill away for the leak adjustments?
Okay, there's another, again, it's not just that, if the person asks for $6,000, that's their perception of what they lost. That's not necessarily what has been substantiated by the water manager and then analyzed and recommended to the council by the Water Commission. So it's not necessarily going to always work out that, they asked for $6,000, which was the cost to them of that water, and then they get the cost at the lowest rate, because it could be the water manager says, yeah, you're asking for $6,000, but I can't substantiate all of that loss. So the amount that was lost, that he will forward onto the commission is a smaller number. So that's why you get so much. That's why each one of these cases is a 1/4 of an inch thick, because there's so much of the analysis, the meter read, and all of the recommendations that end up coming to you. And that's why you get it ahead of time as well. And the two other things I'll offer is I'll be glad to sit down with you and go through all this stuff. Mr. Parsons will, and I know that Chairman Valdez will too. Not only the rules, the law, the ordinance that y'all approved, but the individual cases, if you like.
Well, based on the approval process so far with council tonight, I think we all ought to hear that. Because I'm not understanding it completely. I just know that we have eliminated a good portion of the water cost that was billed out.
Okay, fair enough. We'll take a look at providing you more information. But keep in mind, this is the ordinance that you approved.
I understand
Okay.
that. Go ahead, I'm sorry to take so much time.
No, it's fine. Anything else? Anyone else? Comments, questions for the commission? We are, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, you do too? Oh, cool, go ahead.
My question's kind of over to Jacob. The one that was the irrigation that you don't have any information on, what would the charge have been at the base water rate? Kind of tying in what Councilman Lancy was just talking about. Do we have that information?
I apologize. You're talking about the first one we just looked at?
This last one, the Gardenia Bend one.
Oh, Gardenia Bend.
The irrigation control panel, fried out, all those kind of things.
So what we did not, we were unable to obtain a laptop reading which would show us the data between the time period of when the complaint or when the request was made. So without that data, we were unable to recommend or grant any credit, obviously. And so
Anything, okay.
It also may be well noted that irrigation leaks are very difficult for us to prove anyways. A lot of people, a lot of individuals, customers will change their irrigation timer zones whenever they find a leak, and so they'll change them, like, oh, I didn't know I was using this much water or doing this, especially when we give them the laptop request and they see how much irrigation they're actually using, and so they make those adjustments, and it's really difficult for us and in fact, impossible for us to determine exactly how much was leaked. So we do two things. We find out if there's a leak, and if there's a leak, how much the leak was, right? And once we do that, we are able to make a determination. Without those two minimal factors, we're unable to grant any credit.
Okay, I understand. I'm trying to figure out a way we can, if I were to go philosophical on this, if it's an act of God, lightning strike Fry the controller, I think we give some sort of an adjustment. If you leave your toilet running because you went out on vacation, that's kind of your fault. You probably should have checked that.
Well, and I'm going to jump in here because I was in the meeting, but if I asked Chairman Valdez to do it, or does he want me to do it, I know what he's going to say. This particular situation, if you look at the account usage for 3 straight months, it was over 100,000. But what happened was this individual was out of town, got the first bill, forgot the first bill and said, wow, this is a lot, something's wrong. Asked his neighbor to take care of it, and the neighbor, instead of turning the irrigation system off, not knowing that it had been fried, reset it, which didn't do any good since it was fried. So then he got another whopping bill the next month. So, and he testified all this. He came in and talked during the Water Commission meeting. So he's well aware that a whole lot of water went through his system, and that something should have been done about it. And that's why he wrote what he did, explained what had happened, and explained what he was trying to get. But since none of that is something that the water manager can give you in specific numbers, the water manager's hands are tied via the ordinance that he can't give you a recommendation. The Water Commission could, chose not to, but the Water Commission could give a recommendation on this. So yeah, this is, I'm personally not comfortable with this one because I think that you should be given a recommendation. So I'll look at the Water Commission chair and say, what's your take on it?
Do nothing.
Do nothing, that's okay. So you have a request from, oh, I'm sorry, you did want to. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, sir. My concern is, yes, I'm empathetic that he was out of town, but on this readings, for example, June 23rd.
Your button's off.
June 23rd, for example, the heavy reading starts at 7:07 and so on, goes on. And then immediately, the very next day, the water goes on at 7:08. In other words, it's set, those are illegal watering hours. And there were more pages like that. He was watering prior to 8 p.m. So that's another issue. And it was consecutive days, and there were more, but just use that as an example. So, that's my point.
Okay. Council, will of the council, do I get a motion for any relief on this, or do you let it go?
I move to, based on the lack of recommendation from Chairman Valdez and his commission, and no substantive report from the Water Department, that we not approve their request, Mr. Cloud's request.
Okay. So the motion is to deny the request.
That's correct.
Okay. So from place 5, deny the request. Can I get a second?
Second.
Place 3 with a second to deny the request. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of denying the request? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Back to you, Chairman Valdez.
Okay, the Water Commission also reviewed 3 other leaks, adjustment request. The Water Commission did recommend to the city administrator to take action on 2 of those. The 3rd request was put on hold to go back to review the ordinance to address when no laptop readings are available. So We did address 3 other ones. The next the next Water Commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 17th at 6 PM here in City Council chambers. It'd be the 3rd Tuesday of the month because the 4th Tuesday is Christmas Eve. So that's all I have. In case you have any questions, I'm open.
Start on the left side, any questions or comments for the Water Commission?
No, thank you.
Sir.
One question to both of y'all have an answer. Is there a way, in an ideal situation, based on what Councilman Bauer said, is there a way to program your computer systems to throw out an alert when you see massive water use can come out of 1 meter? Is that a possibility today or maybe in the future?
Yes, it's absolutely possible. It just comes with a high price tag. But yeah, the technology is out there.
Can you just give us, in the future, maybe next month or the month after, an idea of what that price tag might be?
Absolutely.
I mean, I have a lot of compassion for these people that have a bill that's absolutely ridiculous. I would hate to be in that position myself. The thing is, I don't believe in giving away water either. But if we had a stopgap that would alert the water department that we have a massive use of water, all of a sudden it would help. I think these
Mr. Parsons, you don't have to take that for homework because you know the answer. You and I both know the answer. Go ahead.
The last figure we got, which was a couple years ago, was it was right at $500,000.
How much?
Right at $500,000.
To program into your computer the ability to see that there's a use?
Correct. So what we face is every meter has to have a new antenna, if you will, placed on it, which is right above $150 a piece. And on top of that, we have to get a new radio system, which we would have to put, the recommendation is 2 antennas, 2 different spots to get every in the city of Garden Ridge. And then on top of that, we'll have a 40...
I don't need any further explanation. That's mind-boggling. So you have an answer now? I wish we could do something, but it's not possible.
No, I'd heard those figures before.
Thank you. Anybody else over here? Ma'am? Sir?
Yes. I like Brian's ideas, but I think we had already, that price tag had already been mentioned of $500,000. I'm assuming it would take the same $500,000 to have something like an app that a person could download on their phone and check it themselves.
To be clear, there's no real-time reading of meters. We have to go out and read the meters. So they're not, so a user isn't able to go to a site and go, how much am I using today? It doesn't exist.
Well, if there's a, if they spend $500,000 in order to do have an alarm go off, so to speak, then it would be, I would assume that would be considered real time. But I know the technology's out there to do something like that. I mean, my wife has our system on her phone, and we were in Italy, and she last week, and she I think she turned it off. She did something to it. I don't know. She knows that stuff. I don't. But the bottom line is, it was in our system. And I'm wondering if something like that is available so the individual could take that responsibility. Although from what I gather, it may be at the $500,000 level at least. But it would be something to check out to see.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, Chairman Valdez, thank you. You all had a lot of work.
Yes, sir.
And it will continue. We appreciate all that you're doing. Next up, the Wildlife Management Advisory Commission had a meeting, and Chair Segovia is here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hello. Sorry I was late. First thing, I believe you have a letter of appreciation that Nancy may have shared. We are asking for your signatures, just to thank Craig Hensley for the work that he did with us, our wildlife biologist. He really went above and beyond for our city. So the letter is there, and our commission, we all signed it, and we have it here for you if you would like to sign it. And we'll send it to him.
Do you, is there anything else
Pardon?
for your report? Is there anything else for your report?
Oh, yeah, that was just number one I noticed, so. Okay, so then Shannon Drickta, she gave a great presentation on birds. I do recommend that anybody who wants to know what to do for their birds for the winter, go online and look it up. Our next meeting is going to be not till January 27th, I believe. I could be wrong. It's going to be the fourth Monday because of the holiday. And Dr. Denise Miner-Williams will be presenting on bats at our Bat Cave. So I expect that'll be a great presentation. Also, we are looking currently for some upgraded equipment, maybe for hog trapping, maybe for investments. And we might have, hopefully we'll have some recommendations next council meeting. I mean, currently, I think what we're doing now is good. It's something that we needed to do immediately, and I think that took care of it. But looking forward, obviously with hog management, they're in Texas. They'll always be in well, I think they'll always be in Texas. And they're not going to go away unless we're totally built up around us. And I don't think anybody really wants that either. And we also sent our wildlife plan to the council. So hopefully y'all did receive it. I know it wasn't in time for y'all to review for this meeting, but we do have our wildlife plan for y'all. And our butterfly meadow is doing well down at Paul Davis Park. I really appreciate Linda Potts. She also went down and checked on it a few times, and we went down together. So if you have any questions.
Over on the right side, questions for Wildlife Management Advisory Commission.
Cynthia, thank you very much for putting that letter together for Craig.
Thank you.
Same here, thanks. I know we almost felt like we owed some of our citizens. My button went off, so. And yeah, he went above and beyond. He really did.
He did.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
And so, council, when we break for the executive session, the city secretary will have that letter, if you would sign it, so we can get it done and we get it sent out. Thank you very much for making sure that letter happened and for the education sessions that you all are putting together. It really is productive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Garden Ridge Parks Committee. Dr. Miller.
The Parks Committee over the last month has focused all of its efforts on the upcoming Christmas tree lighting ceremony, which is tomorrow night, starting at 5 o'clock and going to 8 o'clock. Don't have too much else to report. Basically, what we've done is taken a hiatus from considering pretty much anything else but the Christmas tree lighting. We'll pick up where we left off next week, actually, with the pocket parks and other things going on. Questions?
Left side, questions, comments for Parks?
No one else has any surprises since I wasn't there.
No.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and we appreciate it. 5 p.m., talk it up, and I'm sure it's going to prove to be another great event put on by the Parks Committee, excuse me. Next up is Volunteer Garden Ridge. Keep it going.
Volunteer Garden Ridge also had to take a hiatus as we focused all of our efforts, or my efforts, if you will, on the Parks Committee and getting this Christmas tree lighting taken care of. Again, we'll pick up next week and refocus on trying to get more volunteers. Seems like we had enough people to, well, I know we had enough people to set up Christmas tree lighting. Our main concern is tearing down the Christmas tree lighting because we have a tight timeline on Friday because another event follows us on Friday. But other than that, we had enough volunteers. I haven't even gone through the list of the other people that wanted to volunteer because I'm focusing on the Christmas tree lighting, to be truthful with you.
Thanks, sir. Comments, questions, volunteer garden Ridge?
To be honest, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate section, but I wanted to thank the master gardeners for that exquisite sign out there. So I apologize if it's not in the right place. For the beautiful sign by the library.
I have no visibility of what you're talking about.
Okay, there's a sign there.
Okay,
It's a beautiful, large sign.
I believe you.
There's volunteers, but it's not part of volunteer garden Ridge.
Okay.
It's Coleman
That's
Master
what I say, I
Gardeners.
don't know. Yes,
Sir,
I
do you
know.
have- do you have anything else? Sir, Say again? Oh, the hours. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What do you have for hours for volunteer garden Ridge?
In November, there were 225 volunteer hours.
225 hours. Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving on to item number 10, approvals, authorizations. First one, 10A, PIO. We have no updates on that. It's just too many other things going on. Next one is 10B, Garden Ridge Market Days, Councilwoman Swen.
You've got the market manager report and the financials in your packets. I hope you all went over that. The last market went really well. We had 48 vendors and at least 1,000 attendees. Things look really good for the next market. So far we've got 54 vendors lined up. We've turned away 35 vendors. Looks like we've got about 3,400 people interested in attending. Got over $2,000 in our checking account. And there were 3 things I wanted the council to consider this month. First is, now that we have a contracted employee in place, I'd like to consider removing the mayor from the market governance. I think between Kim, the city administrator, and myself, we've got it handled. The second thing is I'd like the market to have a little more autonomy so we don't have to keep coming to council. For the small things, I think the city administrator, can have primary oversight and she can decide, if there's an issue that really needs council approval. And the third thing is I'd like to consider expanding the market into the community center, at least in our coldest and hottest months, January and February, July and August. Certainly we could do this on a trial basis and, see if it works or not. So those are my 3 things I'd like council to consider.
Okay, we can take these one at a time, but first, starting over on the left side, any comments or questions for Councilwoman Swen on the market?
As far as financially, if we were to move inside, would the profit, would it be underwritten by the city, the rental, if you will, or would it be from the profit? Would the market actually pay for the rental?
Well, I don't think the market should pay for the rental.
You look upon it as a community?
Well, it's a city event.
Right, just a question.
Sir, comments, questions?
I agree with that, but what, would you all pick up the cost at least to clean up?
Sure, I mean, we could
okay.
use, yeah.
I mean, that would be the only hard cost that would be coming out of the city's pocket, would be the cost of the cleanup, so if that was, but I think, as long as the community center isn't already committed for those one or two of those months, I don't see any problem with that.
Well, I was certainly not committed for January and February. Those may be good trial months for us.
Yeah. One other thing, I would like us to move away from the general population out in the parking lot using the secured area of City Hall for a bathroom. That should only be in City Hall, or the community center shouldn't be, and nobody should be allowed in here in the secured areas. Is that still what's going on?
Yeah,
As far as
and I don't
restroom
know,
facilities?
Kat, how is that decided? I mean, I don't have an issue with it, but I don't know. when y'all
It
first
was
set
just,
it up?
it was something that Miss Nancy and I had decided for the very first market, just because it was closer to the parking lot.
I agree, at one point it was probably necessary, and when we were small, it really didn't make probably too much of a difference, but now it appears that your entire parking lot's going to be loaded
Oh, it is.
from now on, so I think it would be better, irregardless of whether the community center is occupied, well, we can't use the bathrooms there if it's leased out or rented out for that day. But I think we need to make that a priority to keep them out of the secured area of the city hall here.
Go ahead.
When the lobby is open for use of the restrooms, the rest of City Hall is locked and secure. So they only have access into the lobby for usage of the restrooms.
Okay, well, I apologize. I thought it was a secured area that they were using.
No, they're
And
using
No,
coming in
they're
that door.
using the
Okay,
lobby area
I
as the
apologize
front
then.
lobby-
That's
lobby
fine. I
area
have no
only.
problem with that then.
Anything else? Sir?
I looked this over, and I think Lisa and Kim are doing a great job of getting this going. One thing I would want to be careful of, I noticed in here, December highlights, looking at live music, face painting crafts, magician, photo op, and a possible Hill Country Ponies. Well, I would say no to the ponies, because that's a big liability issue. But one thing I would be kind of careful of is getting too much of the magician, the crafts, face painting, getting too much of that, because pretty soon you're more like a carnival or a fair as opposed to a market day. I mean, I could see us having a booth with, a magician, a ventriloquist, an ape lady, a pretzel man, whatever. And I think that may be taking it a little bit too far, but I like the idea of. I like the idea of expanding it a little, and I really think you're doing a great job on it, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
A comment on the community center. The other places are closed down January and February because the weather's pretty nasty.
Correct.
So what you're thinking of, why don't we try it inside and see how it goes?
Correct.
I hate to have the city pay for, the community center cleanup and everything else. I think a lot of that should be part of the operating expenses. As far as the changing the committee, I think Nancy really has to stay on it, but I like the mayor on it. I don't know who we would want to put in his place.
I don't think we need anybody else.
Who all would be on that committee? You and Nancy?
Me and Nancy and Kim as the employee.
Contractor.
Well, I understand. I don't know, I'd like to keep him on if he would want to stay on, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, on a much broader scale, it's not unlike Ms. Kane approving banners. We went to that decision years ago, rather than tie up and timely and being timely and so forth and so on. To me, it's not unlike Ms. Ryan now, because she is a contract employee who is taking care of our community center and communicating with Ms. Kane, and Ms. Kane still has oversight. I don't think it'd be really any difference. We just have a different Kim.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it wouldn't be any different. It'd be, we'd still be, if Ms. Kane, as a city official, ever had a concern, she would obviously bring it to us right away. And then I think we would have an obligation to respond as a governing body.
I understand what you're saying. However, we only meet once a month, and it's like some of the decisions may be needed, like for the December market days. There may be something coming up after today that we can't do anything about it. I mean, as far as an approval is concerned.
Well,
John,
then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, then I think then those things have to be considered. I mean, just like if Ms. Ryan now had a customer or client, if you will, potentially want the community center for something unusual that we've never addressed before or we know to be a problem, it would be her, as a contract employee, it would be her obligation to say, I'm not sure this is a good idea. And I don't think, so if there's something like that, I think it would be the responsibility of Ms. Swint, Ms. Wood to say, this doesn't fit. Much like your thing about monkeys and horses, and I thought you were gonna go to manure rather than liability. But anyway, so I don't really see there's any difference. If there's an issue that comes up between now and a week from Saturday, Ms. Kane, I think, certainly has the ability to just say, no, if you want to try that, let's try it in January or February or what have you.
John, what I would like to also add in to what Lisa would like is that council be brought up to date on this once a quarter with an income and expense statement, and that we do not bring this up every council meeting, because I don't think we're necessary to make this work. Lisa and Kim are both doing an excellent job. We don't need to sit there and oversee what's going on. That's council and the mayor. I don't think we need to be part of it because it's running fine by itself. So just let it go.
Well, I think Karen's you're planning to put the financial statement for the market in every month from now on, correct? Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great thing to have every month. But I don't think we need to have an in-depth report and go make, I think we're just getting caught up in a lot of minutia every meeting, and I think we could pass some of that on to the city administrator to make those kinds of decisions.
We're talking about $1,000, $1,100 a month in income. That's not something we need to hear about at council every month. And y'all are doing a great job of managing it, so I don't know why we need to be
Well, I don't
involved.
think we need to hear about it, but I think it's okay to just have the statement in the packet. I mean, I don't think we need to.
Consensus on this, or what do you?
Anyone else? So the first, I'd like to take each one of these separately. The first one is to remove the mayor from this. And Councilman McCaw, I appreciate what you're saying. I understand some of the concerns, but no, I, without a doubt, I don't need to be on it. But what I will say is that it is not a committee of a contractor, a council person, and a staff member. The contractor is a contractor, not part of a committee that's representing the city. The thing that I will tell you that is not being said here is it still is taking time from the staff. And because there's all these new things that keep coming up about ponies and about different nonprofits that are there and different venues and all these other things. When this is stable, when it is, this is the time, this is the place, this is what we do, this is what we don't do, this is what we accept, this is what we don't accept, the staff's not going to have a lot to do with it. But I will tell you that it does take a lot of time for the financial manager to do it. It's not my words, by the way. So that's another issue. So this does not come at no cost. So that's the first thing. But yeah, I don't need to be involved in it. But I will tell you that I think the council needs to be involved anytime anything changes. And I'll give you an example. The Hill Country Ponies. I don't know what the story with that is. It's on the report. Is that if this wasn't going to come to council, would there be Hill Country ponies out there the next weekend?
That's just something that Nancy Kane and I have been discussing.
Yeah. So that's not something for Nancy Kane and you to discuss. That's something for the council to make a decision on. And the reason why is because it comes with heavy liability.
And correct, and she's been consulting with our city attorney.
And so I actually, and that's where my concern is, council. My concern is that, you know, in a stationary, these are the rules situation, everything's fine. But with all of these ideas and all of these things that are being pushed onto Nancy to try to figure out and having to spend time on this and then make a decision without you, council, the people that are responsible to protect the city, having any input into it, I think is a mistake. So I think the way to handle this is to say, these are the rules, go forth. You want to change the rules, you need to come back to the people that are responsible for the liability of the city and to make the decision. And I do want to point out, I do want to call out the pony thing, because at first blush, it sounds like a great idea, but to give you an idea of how bad of an idea it is, City Attorney, talk to us about this.
All right, so as council is aware, most of the activities that the city conducts, when they conduct these kind of activities, you're covered by your governmental immunities. And in order for somebody to get past the governmental immunities, there actually has to be some sort of statutory waivers of those immunities. Unfortunately, as adorable as ponies might be, the requirements for ponies meets that threshold level of governmental waiver of immunity. And so the city does have the potential for a really large immunity waiver here, depending on the type of claim that is made, which exposes the city to a significant amount of liability. And so that's specifically as to, in this particular instance, ponies, but any type of livestock or farm animal that's used, a kind of petting zoo, specifically the ponies. So there's a specific provision that says that governmental immunities are waived. And so you just have to be aware of that. So the city just needs to make, you know, sound decisions on how they're going to manage those risks, because most of the time we're saying, hey, you don't have a risk, you don't have a liability, or we're saying you need to manage risks. And in this case, you know, you're just in a position of managing those liabilities because there is a specific waiver of the city's normal governmental immunities. Normally what we say for this type of activity or similar types of activities is you can gain a hold harmless agreement or a release of claims type of agreement, which works as to the parents, because when children are involved, and especially as it applies to ponies and farm animals, there's two types of claims. So the parent actually has a claim if their child gets hurt, but then the child has their own claims. And so the hold harmless and the release protects the city against the claims from the parents, but it doesn't protect against claims from the children. And children's claims can be brought up until such time as they're 20 years old. And so there's a big risk exposure for, you know, that type of event. So just know that going forward, you know, if this is the type of vendor to be brought in.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is when we went to the city administrator and said we were considering ponies, Nancy did the exact right thing and said, I'm going to contact the city attorney and see what exactly it is we would need and what our liability would be, which would be the exact same thing that council would do, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
No, but the difference is that the city administrator isn't making the decision. Council is responsible to make the decision. And so the difference being, she would have to say, okay, well, no, you can't do it. And the council has to be the one to decide to put the city into that liability situation. Same thing with a bouncy castle. There's a lot of issues with bouncy castles. Same thing with a lot of the other things. So my point is very simply that there's a lot of incentive to do a lot of things with this and turn it into a lot of great things. And my personal opinion doesn't even matter. But the fact of the matter is that we have to be very careful that we don't get out in front of ourselves in our enthusiasm to make this bigger and better and greater.
Agreed.
And we are already seeing that we've done that a few times. And that we already are seeing that we're putting more and more into this, and we need to tread lightly on this. So it is not the same to say that the city administrator would research this and make a decision, because the city administrator wouldn't make the decision. It would still have to come to council. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So, again, my point is that my recommendation to council is that it doesn't need to be a large committee working this, as long as any departures from what the council, y'all, have said this event is, any departures from that come back to you. So if nothing changes for 6 months, then nothing needs to come to you for 6 months or whatever you decide. But if we're going to start adding things to this, I think it's important for you to be able to have the input into this.
Would you like council to get together a bunch of rules for us to follow? I mean, to follow so we can accomplish what you were asking?
That would be prudent.
Okay. Can you help us with that, I guess? Bring it up next month?
So by consensus, are you okay with the mayor being off of this?
Yes.
Okay. The next one is have the market have more autonomy. That's what I've just been talking about. And so by consensus, you're saying that you're going to have more definitive procedures for what the market does, what it doesn't do, what it has, what it doesn't have, what it allows for vendors, et cetera, et cetera. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would suggest is until that happens, nothing else changes unless it's a change that's made here tonight that y'all agree on. Is that reasonable?
I think we ought to allow the community center to be used if it's not being leased.
Okay, so now that's the last of the three things. So I was
okay.
talking autonomy. So for autonomy, are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so now the third one is expanding the market to the community center for January, February, July, and August. It is, I appreciate that you mentioned the cleanup, but there's a lot more than the cleanup. It's the cleanup, it's the fact that it now will not be used for any revenue making, if we reserve it for January, February, July, and August. There is the issue of, now, there's a lot of cleanup, frankly, because if you do that, you're going to have, those bathrooms are going to be used nonstop, because that's just the nature of having bathrooms right next to what now is kind of like a craft show in the community center. The other thing is that utilities. If we ever provide electricity and utilities to them outside, we're going to have to upgrade, the electrical system right outside the building, and then have some electricity running to vendors that are possibly willing to pay for it. If they do it in a community center, they're just going to go over and plug in, and we're going to have to heat it in the winter. We're going to have to cool it in the winter, or the other way around. Sorry, and we're going to and so the utility bill is going to go up considerably. That is now on the back of the general fund as well. So this. I would say that the point that something like Wimberley, a huge setup, doesn't do it a couple months a year for that very reason is a good example. To use our community center completely changes the complexion of this market. It changes it into an indoor craft fair instead of the market that it was designed to be. It's your decision. I'm just asking you to consider it's a different thing. We start bringing it into the community center with the labor, with the utilities, with the wear and tear that's going to happen in our community center for 4 months out of 12 a year.
I did make that recommendation with the stipulation that if it's not leased, so we're not losing any revenue if there's no revenue coming in. Second is you made a good point about the extra utility costs, with the exception of that the heating and air conditioning is on in that building 24/7, 365. I noticed that when we put in the air conditioning system, and I realized that that we don't turn it off, it's always on. So that's when back a year or so ago, when I recommended that the Lions Club use it for their meetings at minimal charge. That was part of the reason I did it, because there is no utility charges over and above what we do on a regular basis anyhow. So if you want to, I mean, the cleanup's already been established and been okayed. What was the other points? Oh, plug it in. Do you want to make a restriction on that? I don't know.
You know, most of our vendors don't require electricity. If we move indoors, we'll probably get some requests, and we can ask for payment on that. We can charge for electricity.
You want to kind of set down some rules for the community
We
center?
can charge, I guess we had,
for next month?
what did we say before when we were talking about it? $5 or $8? It was 5? We can charge $5 for electricity per vendor. They'll absorb that cost. That's what other markets do.
One quick question. If this, and it looks like it's going in this direction, if this effort starts making $2,000 or $3,000 a month, and that goes into the city coffers, am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then we are getting paid back for the wear and tear in the community center.
Well, and the other part to this would be very simply, I would suggest that council have some guidance on what happens to the money, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of incentive to plow it into the market. As you look at the financial report, you see that a lot of the money is going back into the market, which is okay, but the more they make, is it going to continue, or is there going to be some kind of guidance that says, once you get to a certain point, we expect that there's going to be something that comes back to investment? And we talked about this. We talked about this a long time ago. Investment in, out there, again, the electrical system, so that they can charge more and have electricity when it's a market and then it's outside. That's going to be an additional cost. The equipment that they said that in the next couple of months they're going to start buying. The canopies that are used, that are the city canopies, for them to buy all of this stuff is, and then, you know, and we joked about it a while back, that if it started to become so successful, we could actually go to putting covered parking that would be also for stalls, just the way if you go up to New Braunfels, you see it up there in New Braunfels. So now you got dual use. It's covered parking for City Hall, as well as it's now you got vendors that don't even have to bring their own tents, and regardless of the weather, they're going to be covered up. So there's lots of things like that, and I just think that needs to be something that you all need to consider as guidance, because if you hired me as a contractor to make this successful, I would take every dime that I made and put it back into it and continue to do it, because every time I do it, I'm going to make more money. And at some point, you all need to decide how far does that go.
I had two questions. One regarding the police, for example. Chief, would it impact the chief, would it impact your guys in any way if it were indoors versus outdoors?
It should not. If it gets to a point where we start talking about thousands of people, you know, the city may want to consider, it could. If we have to bring an officer in for that, then it's overtime pay and so forth. The only time it's mandated is when there's alcohol, which we don't allow. But with that kind of volume, there may be a requirement for one of us to be out there for parking issues, general crowd issues. So it could, it may.
I think that could be considered in the long run. Secondarily, I'd like to ask Ms. Ford if, like, a quarterly report is sufficient in terms of her time and accuracy and so on and so forth, if as opposed to a monthly.
I still have to put the numbers together on a monthly basis to get to a quarterly report. So there's no difference. I mean, they're there already, so monthly is fine with me, if that's okay with you guys.
But as far as your personal workflow, I mean, like you said, you have to do it monthly anyway, so they're sitting here whether we report them monthly or whether we come forward quarterly. The paperwork's already done.
The paperwork is already done, but if you're talking about putting quarterly together, then I'm going to actually have an extra step of putting the 3 months and then have a total for 3 months. You're actually adding more work by doing it on a quarterly basis.
Thank you.
Mm.
I do like the idea of assessing electricity to the vendors, because I know that's, I don't know how that would calculate out, but that certainly would help offset costs. And I think if we come forward with some ideas, I don't know how we're going to do it without a quorum concerns, but if we can come up with some sort of guidelines, just based on what we've already accomplished since May, I think it'd be a healthy. I think it'd be a healthy thing for the city.
Okay, anything else on this side? Go ahead.
I think Brian mentioned that as long as there's not another event there, but I think we got a timing problem. I suppose Kim would be able to tell us how much ahead the vendors book for showing up. We have to commit probably at least a couple weeks before.
John,
event to the
they already know
vendors.
that. They already answered these questions.
Well, what I'm saying is, if we're going to do it, let's say the second Saturday of January, then we're going to have people putting their money down at the end of December. And if someone wants to come in and actually rent it for the second Saturday, we can't do it because we've already committed to the market day. So I think we just need.
They don't have precedence. Nobody ever said that. If it's leased, then they have a precedent.
Put your mic on, please.
If the community center is leased, then they have the first go, okay, the leasing.
Yes.
If it's empty, then they have the opportunity to use it.
I think I'd rather, especially for January and February, if we're going to do it, I think I would rather have it for the market days and not lease it to someone who comes in, because I think the vendors should have some.
Yeah, we'll have to have that nailed down.
Yes, some
We can't
kind
take
of
that away
continuity.
from
We-
them.
We can't make it flimsy, you know, say, well, if someone comes in and wants to rent it 3 days before, or a week or 10 days before.
No, they don't. They don't.
Normally, they don't, I understand.
Right.
But I think I'd rather say, if we're going to do it for those 2 days, I would rather have it planned in advance so the vendors can plan on it, because I don't think these people want to be turned away at the last minute or even a week before. Just an observation.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to say about this?
Sometimes, Mr. McCaw, that they do come in at the last minute. I mean, they get an idea for, let's do, you know, not a family reunion, but so-and-so's going to be in town or whatever like that. So occasionally it does happen. I think it's a matter of working with Ms. Ryan right away to find out if she has it booked, that this all.
January and February are not booked.
Okay, as of today, okay. I think it's a matter of working with Ms. Ryan as well as any future community center manager to understand these are reserved. And how far in advance can you reserve? Just like we have rules on the park, and just like people want to reserve, you know, for a wedding, obviously, that often they're a year or two out, or a year and a half or whatever. I think we need to establish some dates pretty quickly.
Anything else? So the third thing for action, I'm going to ask for a motion and a vote on whether or not the market days is going to be using the Community Event Center for the second Saturday of January, February, July, and August, or any subset of that you all want to make a motion for.
June, July, and August. August and September is our hottest months.
August, September?
Was last year.
Anybody want to make a motion?
On each one individually or all three?
No, that you did consensus on removing the
Oh.
mayor and the market having more autonomy with operating procedures.
Okay, I
articulated.
make a motion that we allow the market days to use the community center 4 weekends a month, preferably in January, February.
4 weekends a
year.
month?
Four days,
4 weekends a year.
4 days a year. That is true. 4 days a year.
Yeah, we'll take it.
January, February, and July, August, or August, September. That's my motion.
Okay, so a motion to have market days be in the community center January, February, July, August, or August, September. That is a motion from place 3. Can I get a second?
Second.
Get a second from place 4. Any further discussion or questions?
Yes, the 2 summer days. The reason I would support January and February is because other places don't do it. New Braunfels doesn't do it, and a lot of these other places don't do it, which kind of makes it unique, to an extent unique to Garden Ridge, and I think we'd have people that would want to come. However, the 2 days, what was it, July and August, or August and September, whichever those two are, I'd rather just stay with having it outside, just like all the other places. I don't see any reason, even though it will be hot, to go inside, especially since it's from 9 to 1 anyway. So it's not like it's going to be in the hottest part of the day. It should be under 100 degrees easily.
Are you going to make that motion after my motion?
No, just my comment.
The reason we suggested those months is because we had really lower turnout during those months because of the heat.
Any further discussion or questions? Go ahead.
I like everything we've talked about. I would like to say, subject to, that we start this in January, so we kind of have a clean slate 2020, and possibly review again in December of 2020 as to the direction we're going, or has it been successful. By then, we'll have a new community center manager and see if that person has any input as to why this is not a good idea, or why it's a great idea, or whatever. And also by then, of course, I would hope that the first few months of this coming year that we'll have, if not 1 month of this first coming year, that we will have some guidelines in writing as to what all of us expect and what we project and so on and so forth. So I'd like to have something on paper pretty quickly, and then subject to review in a year, with the idea that it's continuing to flourish and will go forward.
Okay, anything else? So we still have a motion and a second for January, February, July, August, or August, September. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. It's going to use the community center. Any other further discussion?
I think that-
Stop.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Starting over the right side, please.
No.
Anything? Go ahead.
I don't know why it would be safe to say that if this doesn't work out with the community center, that they would just stay outside. I mean, I think the community center income is probably as important as any decision we're making. So if it appears that they're going to be booked every one of those days for all 4 months, or the entire year, then we ought to maybe could reconsider in the future. But I think right now it's a decent decision. In other words, it's one of those ongoing, changeable things.
Anything? Ma'am?
Yes, once again, if we had a finite number right now, and perhaps you do, but finite number right now, for example, how much money that Ms. Ryan, books in, say, August. I mean, I know it's available, but I just mean like right now, in August, and offset that by how much, again, with the increased vendor costs for electricity. Just maybe that'd be something to compare apples to apples.
I did try to get,
Right.
what an average.
Sure.
And wasn't able to.
Right.
Okay, so it's approved, and does anybody have anything else to add for item 10B? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 11, updates, city administrator reports.
Update on feral hogs. We have not been informed of any yard damage resulted from the hogs. We have not trapped any hogs of recent. And I am working with the trapper in getting prepared for any future problems that we have with the hogs. Are there any questions?
Any questions on that? Over here. Pam, go ahead.
CIP project, update on that is that we have $30,160.65 remaining in CIP funds, which is earmarked for payout for the Beinsel Road storm water improvements. And we expect that to be cleared by our council meeting in January.
Questions, comments on that? CIP, closing it out.
Thank
Over here. Go ahead.
Upgrade on security, upgrades at Paul Davis Park. I'm going to ask Chief Everhart to update council on that.
Thank you. Yes, so we've started the upgrades as approved. At this point, I've had the locksmith come out. We've changed the locks on the bathrooms. So we now have digital locks that function automatically. I have them programmed to unlock at 7 in the morning and lock at 8 o'clock at night. That way we don't have to tie up city employees both morning and evenings going by to lock up bathrooms down there. Since our park is open till dark, as the time changes with daylight savings, days get longer, we can reprogram and change the programming to increase the hours in the longer days so that it'll take care of that. Also, in addition to that, though they're locked during those nighttime hours, there are codes programmed in. Public Works and Water Department have a code. The Police Department has a code, so they can actually activate the code and go in anytime they need to, and it automatically locks back up. There is a system in place. I'm still working on the app to get, it will record those functions, so if we ever needed it in the future, we can get a printout of who activates the locks and so on and so forth. Shouldn't be anybody. We can change them whenever we need to keep that secure. I've also met with Stephen and Eric at the park. So we have picked out spots for a utility pole out by the new pavilion, out by Pavilion 3, which will house 3 cameras, 1 for Pavilion 3, 2 for the ball fields. We will tie off of there, trench in, and go over and set a second pole by the basketball courts. There will be a cable run between the two so that we will have a camera on the basketball courts. Those cameras will then electronically, wirelessly be transmitted back up to the recorder. So I'm waiting for those poles and trenching to get done before we move on to the next step. I've already contacted the camera vendor. He's aware of it. He's on standby. All I have to do is give him the word, and he'll be available to come out and do it within a week. So once we get the hardware put in for the landscape part of it, we'll be able to continue on with the camera upgrades. Once the cameras start getting installed, I'll work with Time Warner, or Spectrum now, and we'll have that hooked into a internet connection, and that way all of the patrol cars will have access to that camera system from their laptops in the car to be able to monitor that. It's where we stand on the park.
Questions or comments for the security? Starting the right side. Chief, thank you. We've spent a lot of time on this. It's really important to protect our assets, but also to protect our people. We're going to make sure that there's conspicuous signs saying that you're on candid camera. And it's the design. Chief spent a lot of time on the design of the system to ensure that met our needs for comprehensive coverage. Really appreciate that. And also, something that we've had an issue with for a long time, and it was a bit subtle, but the last piece, which is that in essence is a force multiplier for the officers, that they will be able to see all around without having to be all around. Not that there's not going to still be all around, but they'll be able to see a whole lot more. And we've been working on this for a long time, and I really appreciate all that you put into this. And council appreciate that you budgeted to make this happen as well. Go ahead, ma'am.
The next update is on the password management system, and Marissa Spencer will update us on that.
I don't really have much of a new update. We've sent all of the invitations out to staff and council, and I'm still waiting on everybody to sign up and create their account. But the holidays, we haven't been able to schedule any of those sessions, so we'll look at dates in January. I don't think it's going to happen in December with everybody's schedules. That's about all I have. If anybody has any questions on how to create their account, please feel free to let me know, Kat, know, any of us. We can help you. If you need your invitation resent, I can definitely do that. Just let me know.
Thank you. Ma'am, do you have anything else? Okay. Next up is item 11B, Mayor's Projects Communication Report. I want to get a kudos out to admin. Our admin folks did a superb job of getting the word out about what you see right here. There's 4 days that we don't have trash pickup, and one of them happens to be Thanksgiving Day. So those people that had Thursday as a pickup were moved to Friday, and those for Friday were moved to Saturday. It's also kind of a kudo for Republic, because in our ordinance, as well as in the old days, what would happen is if you had Thursday, you wouldn't have pickup again until your next pickup, which would be a Monday for those people. And Republic instead doesn't take a day away from you and just moves it one day. But this catchy graphic that our admin put together, well done, Kat. And it was out on Facebook, it was on Nextdoor, it was on the website. And next year, or next time, I should say, we'll work it to get the word out even more. We're also going to be looking at the ordinance, because the ordinance reflects the way the old way was, and so you'll see that pretty soon as well. It'll be a pretty simple change, but nevertheless, you'll see that. The next couple of applicable holidays don't fall on a trash day anyway, so it won't even be a factor for a while. That being Christmas and New Year's. Okay, so again, for communication, our staff really did a great job. Citizen contact, I mentioned this to you, that Public Works was working with TxDOT to get the drainage ditch on 3009. That was something that cleared out. So that was something that was brought to us during coffee with the mayor. It said, and the great thing is that our Public Works realized that not only might this be an issue just for drainage, but it's also an issue for what you're very familiar with up here, the MS4 contract, in essence, that we have, that the city is responsible with drainage and making sure that we comply with all of the MS4 stipulations, to include the ones that we wrote in our own plan. So Public Works got on TxDOT, and TxDOT cleared it out. So success there, and a big thank you to Public Works for making that happen. Another one is what you already heard about, but it came from another coffee discussion where PD working with the county to ensure that the truck traffic is prevented from coming onto Bat Cave and Shanethal/Ben Seal, and because of the fact that once they got to our city, it was too late for us to tell them they couldn't be there because they couldn't turn around. But that was a great job by the PD to make sure that we had that coordinated, because we had to get them to agree to put signs in the county where it didn't really affect them at all. So thank you, PD. Okay, city facility update, the AV upgrades and streaming. Great success story here. Ms. Spencer, go ahead and fill us in.
So we are all live on the website. Basically, the software portion that we've been talking about for so long, and then we switched companies in the middle of it and we started over, is now done. So it feels very good. We are currently indexing the video to the agenda. Something that I need to get used to. So tonight's has been a little rough, so don't go watch the video right after that. It's gonna need a little time to fix some of them. But otherwise, you'll see it through the Agenda Center, which is where all of our agendas and our packets have traditionally been posted. It looks a little different because it's the portal from Civic Clerk. They're still doing a couple of adjustments on there, so like most meetings have like 2 or 3 different postings on there. That's because we merged the Agenda Center that we had, which had recurring events, with Civic Clerk before removing events from one of them. They're still working on that, but basically you can watch the videos, view the agenda, view the packets, minutes, all in one place on our website. So we don't need to use YouTube anymore. However, right now we're streaming to YouTube because people are used to it. Thought I would give everyone 1 more month so we can give them 1 more month of heads up. We are not using YouTube anymore. So, well, that's all I got.
Left side, questions, comments for Ms. Spencer?
No, thank you.
Yeah, this is a long time coming, and behind the scenes, she has worked, well, actually, her and Kat have worked really hard to make this happen. And it's exactly what we talked about that we would have months ago when we started talking about this. All of this equipment, connecting, the ability for somebody now to look at the agenda and not have to watch the whole video, but to click on the item that they care about. The video will come up, they'll be able to watch just that piece. And just one more step to make sure that anybody in our city at any given time can find out what's going on in their city. And then they can come to you and say they don't like what they're seeing, or they like what they're seeing, which never happens.
I would like to say one more thing. Since this is pretty much wrapping up this project, this was our final step, we have it live. We still have a little bit of work to do, but he probably doesn't remember that he told me this, but I do want to thank someone that helped me tremendously in the beginning, and that is Mr. Shelby Trial, which he doesn't like to be thanked, but he told me that I could thank him one time at the very end. And so I want to thank him, even though he's not here. I know that he'll eventually watch this video and he'll hear this. So he was a tremendous help to me at the beginning and throughout the process of this. He attended some of the trainings with me in my office, watching these webinars, and just as confused as I was. And yeah, he was a big help. But so I want to thank him.
Well done.
Since I can now.
And council, this does apply to you as well, because if you're interested in what's going on in a commission meeting, you'll be able to do the same thing now. So if you wanna see what's going on with water loss adjustments, or you want to see what's going on with P&Z and their discussion about something, you'll be able to do exactly the same thing. In the comfort of your own home and whatever you happen to be wearing at the time, you can, with an adult beverage if you like, you'll be able to sit there and you'll be able to watch and hear what's going on. So it makes all of it accessible to all of us, and it's a great thing, and we really appreciate what you did, Ms. Spencer. Okay, Tech Dot Coordination, FM 3009 Safety is item number 11B4. A couple of things. First of all, Tech Dot said that they would have the speed limit changed by October. So everybody that asked me in October, how come it's not changed, I told them that with Tech Dot, if the minimum wasn't good enough, it wouldn't be the minimum. But November 1, in the morning, I called Tech Dot and said, what's going on? It clearly hasn't been done. Get passed back and forth, and finally, they tell me what's going on, and then they send me a depiction. And the long and short of it is, when you come into the city and you slow down, you're not going to slow down to 40, you're going to slow down to 45 is what they're proposing. They still have to work through some wickets. And then when you get up the hill, instead of going to 55, it's going to go to 50. And it's going to stay 50 for the rest of the city. And that was one of the goals that I was trying to get. It was just one speed limit going through instead of these changes. 50 is a step. If it was up to me, it'd be slower than that. But believe me, getting 50 was a great first step. I have an email from 2 weeks ago into them about, okay, this is what you're doing. When is it going to happen? He hasn't answered. I have a phone call into him beginning of last week before I left, and another one today, and have not gotten an answer. But I'm probably scaring him because I asked him a whole lot of other questions too. And I want to tell you that we're working on a few other things. First of all, if you recall, about 2 years ago, maybe about a year and a half maybe, all of a sudden they're tearing up the road on 2252 at the intersection of 2252 and 3009, and everybody's saying, what's going on? And none of us know what's going on. And so I called TxDOT and I said, you mind telling us what you're doing in our city? Oh, yeah, we're moving the line. You asked us to move the line. That was something that I had asked them to do, move the stop line further back so you didn't have trucks running in the cars when they were sitting at 2252 to take a left to basically come in this direction. But they didn't tell us they were going to do it, and we didn't know what was going on, and they were scraping the road, and they did it, and they didn't put it where we asked, so they did it the second time, if you recall that. But so at that time, I said to our representative, said, look, you don't have to call us to ask for permission. It's your road, and you don't have to make this a formal notice, but do you think maybe you could call and leave a message or send a one-line email or something? And he agreed. So when I was driving here one day and there was equipment tearing up 3009 over, if you come out of here, take a right, I called him and I said, what's going on? And he said, oh yeah, they're going to be resurfacing out there. I said, hey, remember that discussion we had? And again, this is not asking for permission, but could you please let us know? We would like to make sure that our officers know and make sure that our citizens know what's going on. And what was really interesting is I said, so what's going on over towards Forest Waters? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, there's another crew in front of Forest Waters, and it looks like they're doing something with the reflectors in the road. And he said, oh, they are? And I said, yeah, they are. And he says, well, that was a contract, but I didn't know they were starting on it yet. So this is a work in progress. But the thing about the road that they did, the resurfacing, is it doesn't look like it's complete, and it looks like it's a mess, and it looks worse than before they started. So that's one of the things that's on my list with him to give me an answer on, and I don't have an answer. Another one is that we've been working on for about 3 years, the intersection of Shanethal and 3009 and what we call Shanethal Loop. And you've heard me talk about this before. Our city trucks won't even, our city vehicles, unless it's an emergency, won't even leave from this side of what we call Shanethal Loop. It's just a continuation of Shanethal. They'll go to the other side over by the well site to leave. And we had meetings about 2 years ago, starting 2 years ago, and had another one within the last year with the county, because the county owns part of it, TxDOT owns part of it, and it's just in our city. We don't own any of the land. Well, it's gotten worse, because not only is that still a problem, although the speed limit going down might help a little bit, but I've had citizens give me situations where now that you can barely see the stop line, people are sitting there getting ready to approach the stop line on Shanethal, and people are turning left from 3009 onto Shanethal proper, and they're driving right into the lane. Not a little bit like they do at 2252 and 3009, but full on nose to nose. Had somebody in here Monday talking about that. So that's something we're working on. Another one is Bat Cave and 2252. And what was funny about this one was a guy came in to talk to me about it, and it had happened to me the night before. If you are turning left onto Bat Cave off of 2252, if you get somebody that decides that they need to climb to the top of the hill and go well beyond the stop line, you now, instead of doing a 90-degree turn from 2252 to Batcave, you end up doing about a 130-degree turn. And this guy pointed out that some people, night vision, not so great. You got a cliff on the other side, and so it's a dangerous situation. And I've got to call in to TxDOT about that as well. So there's a lot of things in the hopper with TxDOT. I asked them, okay, so what are we doing about the school zone? And they dismissed me offhand and said, well, now that they're doing 2 lanes into the school, we don't need to do a school zone. I said, whoa, time out. Because my look at it is it's still an opportunity to slow people down on 3009 to begin with. So we're still in the middle of all this, and it moves glacially slow, but I'm not giving up. We're not giving up. So that is the status of all that. We can do letter writing campaigns and all that, but the fact of the matter is they're going to move at their pace, and that's what I've seen and what we continue to see. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
I just wanted to say thank you for that, being diligent about it, because less than a year now, we're going to have 700 teenagers.
And they're well aware of that.
And just keep that.
Go ahead.
I'm going to join in on this because I had a number of people over the holiday week and just prior to it come and talk to me about some of this stuff and some interesting ideas. Stoplights. What's stopping us from putting up stoplights? We buy them, TxDOT approves them, we put them up.
Yeah, the approval part is actually a big wicket because there has to be a study done, and they won't even do the study. They make the city in this case pay for the study as well as pay for the lights.
Okay.
And lights are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And remember, one of the problem intersections I talked to you about, they're going to put a light there.
Right.
It's just not going to happen for like another year and a half or so.
Right. There's a couple other locations in particular that come to mind that are coming out of gated communities. And it seems to me that it wouldn't be, why do we have to wait till somebody gets killed before we can force TxDOT's hand into doing something about it? I know it's not our issue for the city, but we're at the point with the traffic flow in the mornings when school's in session and we're adding the high school coming in next year and everything else, somebody's going to get killed. It's a matter of time. It'll be next month, it'll be next year, but somebody's going to get killed. Whether it's coming out of Trophy Oaks or coming out of George Ranch or turning off of Shanetal, somebody's going to get killed at one of those intersections. And I don't know how we force TxDOT's hand on that a little bit. I love the work you're doing with them. I don't know how we turn up the heat, I guess is what my real question to council is I'd like to see us turn up the heat on that before we do get somebody killed. School district managed to pull it off. There's going to be a light by the high school. At first, TxDOT was telling them no.
But the school district is paying for that.
Right.
And the school district has an unlimited well of money.
I wouldn't say unlimited, but it's quite a bit deeper than ours. They probably waste more money than we've got for a city budget. I understand that. I guess it's something I like to continue discussing because I'm concerned about it. And I'll admit part of it is I got a kid turning into a driver here in about 6 months. So that's got me a little worried as well.
Me too.
Anything else on this side? Anything else on this side? Okay. City council projects, the length of meetings is Councilman Lanzi. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep this short because that's the title of my thing here. I want everybody on council to keep in mind what we have here is a business meeting. We have a business meeting between us, the mayor, and the city staff. I've spent a lot of time in the last month looking at other council meetings from Austin down to us here locally, and without exception, everybody on council sits there, and I don't know what they do, but they don't make any comments unless it has to do specifically with a motion or a recommendation or an observation they have with the citizens that they think needs action on. I think that's something we should keep in mind. If you don't understand what I'm saying, look at the Schertz City Council. It's probably the best example I've seen of a mayor and a council working well together. Just spend a little bit of time looking at that. They sit there and they conduct business, which is what we should be doing here. I think when we get off on a tangent, and we all do, including myself, I think that's one of the reasons that extends this meeting to after the ridiculous situations we've had in the last couple of months. So I think if we treat this as a business meeting like every other city council does in our general area, we would not only have a better city council meeting, we would have a shorter one. That's all I have.
Okay, so first of all, Schertz does 2 meetings a month. Did you watch both of them?
2 or 3.
Yeah, they do at least 2. So they can be more expeditious because they don't have to cover as much, and they don't. They also have a lot more staff to support whatever's going to be brought to the council. So I want to make sure I understand, because I've been taking this task on to try to figure out how to make it shorter. And when you're saying that we're talking about things we don't need to talk about, we need to understand what you're saying.
I didn't mean that, Mayor. Discussions about birds hitting buildings, frustrations with dogs and cats. That's a general discussion with everybody here in this room. It wasn't a specific item that we were dealing with in a business meeting. Those are the kind of things we should avoid. I understand what the problems were with the dogs and the cats, and I actually sympathize with that. But that's not part of what we do. If there was a recommendation made by that councilwoman, then about a solution to the problem, then we had every right to be talking about it. But just a general description and the frustration had no business in this meeting.
Okay. Other opinions on that? We'll start over on the right side.
It is supposed to be a business meeting, but, put the qualifier on the end of it, sometimes to bring the next topic up, we've got to have a discussion about the topic that's going to come up for the next meeting. So we may end up having a discussion about ponies at the market days or anything like that, which may not strictly be business, but will impact us in some way, shape, or form. So that's my thought process. I think we're doing a good job of accelerating them because we're going to get out of here before midnight tonight.
Hang on a second. Let them.
Well, this is still.
Well, you said what you wanted to say, and let's let them say what they want to say. Go ahead.
Okay, I agree we're trying to cut these meetings short, which is why I'm going to continue to talk. I think the way we handle things, we are given this information that we look at. And for those of us that review it ahead of time and put some thought into it, not all my questions, I can send questions to Mr. Trevino, and to Ms. Kane and get my answers, but not all answers can come forward. And in the interest of transparency and everybody that's watching us, I don't think we're being frivolous. I think frivolous is maybe okay if we joke and continue to joke, but I think the mayor keeps that pretty good check. So I don't think, yes, I'm all for shortening the meetings too, but we're here for a business, and I think everything we're discussing is business. And yes, I'm going to talk about my item and pets.
Go ahead.
I didn't want you to take this personal because I said we're all guilty of it at some level. This is a business meeting. There's nothing wrong with us discussing business. If we have a problem with something, we have an observation from a citizen, it needs to be brought up to all our attention. The general conversation that we tend to have occasionally to everybody here in this room has no place in this business meeting. This business meeting is between council, the mayor, and the city staff. That's it. Okay?
Okay, Council. What I'll say about this very simply is that this is the only opportunity where all 5 of you can discuss any issue together, regardless of what the issue is. It's the only opportunity. We put it, by law, we put it on an agenda and we then talk about it, and you can't talk more than 2 of you at a time or ever about any of them. So if one of you has something that you believe all of council needs to know because it's in the best interest of the citizens that you represent, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. And that's why, my MO is to always give everybody the opportunity. So I can also tell you that I've watched many of those meetings, and a lot of times it's not, they don't have the same approach. What they do is they just plow through it, and if you really got something, you need to speak up or you're going to be rolled over. And my my take on it, as long as I'm the mayor, is I'm always going to go right to left, left to right to left, to make sure that everybody has their opportunity to speak. So that probably does take a little bit more time, but it's the only time that y'all get to talk about this. You know, if anybody has any ideas on anything else to make it shorter, or if anybody has any specific issues they want to talk about with me about what anybody else is saying, I'll be glad to entertain it. But, you know, short of managing this agenda, putting some things into a non-discussion type of thing, and then all of us being aware of it, I'm not sure what else at this point we can do.
Could I ask our city attorney to add on into this? Am I out of line suggesting this is a business meeting and we should keep it to business instead of general conversation?
So it is a business meeting, and the city attorney is going to do what city attorneys do when policy decisions come up, and politely step back and say how the council wants to conduct its business meeting is entirely within council's policy decision-making. So how, you know, whatever efficiencies y'all would like to put in place or changes, that's entirely within y'all's realm of council procedures.
And Councilman Lanzi, it's unfortunate we have to use this as an example, but it's the example you used. If a council person wants to talk about, they believe there's an issue with animals or whatever, if they believe it's an issue, and they're gonna, and they can go through the process that we have to get it on the agenda, we get it on the agenda, and they can talk about it. And I've never knowingly prevented any of y'all from doing that. If you, in your estimation as a duly elected representative, believe that something is business, and you keep using that, this is a business meeting, well, I believe that, I'm not aware of anything that was discussed tonight that wasn't city business. If there is, feel free to let me know now or let me know offline, but I believe everything that's on here is city business. So, but I'm always open if you ever think there's something that we could be doing better.
Well, I have to give you credit because you have never, ever tried to shut us down, limit our conversation about anything. I do give you credit for that. But again, there's a lot of times that we get off on a tangent that has nothing to do with the business we're trying to conduct, and I think we should avoid that. Now, my observation about these other council meetings from Austin down to this local area may be a little bit different than yours. I saw some discipline, and I don't think we have quite the discipline that we probably should have. That's my opinion.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else for this? We're going to say. Yeah. Okay. Next is item 11C2, pets. Councilwoman Bauer.
Yeah, with all due respect, Mr. Lancy, I'm not taking this personally, but I am addressing the pets issue again, because as I've said for 3 consecutive months, we have ordinances about this, and for whatever reason, and I've said this, I do not have an answer. I have asked, and no one has ever come forward to me in several months now to say I have a solution, or I apologize for letting my darn cat. Came home this afternoon, there was a black and white cat. I happen to know where it lives. It was in my front yard. I shooed it out. It went back to its home. Then my dog, I was home, and one of my dogs was barking. I go out, and there's an orange cat in my next-door neighbor's yard, not their cat. This is a problem. And until we figure out a way, you know, I listened to a citizen regarding this problem. To me, it is a problem because we have rules. It's not like, you know, we don't have rules about this. And people with their attitude, cats are meant, quote unquote, to run free. That's not true. Any more than my dog. I could let my dog run free. I guarantee my dog could take down a deer, but I'm not going to let it happen. So until someone comes forward and says, I apologize, I see this, I know what you're doing. My neighbors have seen this. So as far as I'm concerned, we have a city ordinance against it. I will not bring it up every time, but not unlike you having a citizen come forward and say, I'd like a stop sign on Timber Rose. Citizens come forward to me and say, got a problem with the cats running free, let alone the dogs. So that I will continue to bring it up. Not every time. I may say just thanks, but no thanks.
Councilman,
Sir, do you have anything on this?
I do appreciate that, and I understand what you're going through. My biggest, I guess, concern at this point is you've got problems with cats that, but at the last council meeting, you were asked if you contacted or Eric about the problem, and you said you hadn't. That would be the first step in solving a problem, is to make everybody aware there's a problem before you bring it to council. But I agree, I mean, you have the right to say it, but do we need to occupy until you figure out something we can do about it, don't bring it to council.
Let's put up a no cat stop sign. And yes, I've spoken to Mr. Loma. He's well aware.
Okay, all right. Anything else? Anything? Okay. Okay, discussion on future agenda items. So first of all, are we leaving C1 and C2 on there? Councilman Lanzi, or does C1 stand on there?
Take it off.
Okay, it's coming off. C2, is it staying on or going off?
Please take it off.
It's off, okay. All right, discussion of future agenda items, start on the right side. Anything for the future you want to have in here? Ma'am? Okay. Okay, next up is item 13, citizen comment period. I believe everybody in here knows this is the one you didn't have to sign up for. It's 2 minutes, and you're saying your name and address does not count for the 2 minutes. But unlike the first one, when you're done, please go over to the city secretary to write down your name and address so we get it right. So anybody have anything? Citizen comment period.
Ken Kniper, 8891 Shanetal Road. At last city council meeting, I'm not sure who has said it, but somebody said, well, they put extra lanes in front of the new high school. Part of that was the cost of the new school. The school district paid for that. Just like the mayor said, he's right. They paid for the traffic lights. That's the cost of the school. It goes on not out of your tax dollars, it comes off of their construction costs for the high school. Wherever they have to put in lights or widen roads, they do it. If you go to Danville Middle School, they got 4-lane road, a part of it. That was put in by the school district, not the city of Schertz. They had to jump through hoops with the city of Schertz to get it finished, but that's how it got done. So yes, it's why our schools cost more, because we pay to do road work. Because TxDOT won't do it for you, they want you to do it. It makes it easier for them, and they don't have the time to do it. If you look around our area, 1103, I was to Cibolo the other day, and guess what? They're getting ready to move traffic lights. They're moving all their utilities back so they can start widening 1103. So TxDOT does have a lot of projects going on in our area. I'm hoping 2252 will stay on schedule if we could not get pushed back. 35 is getting work done by TxDOT. You can't go on, lanes are constricted, so traffic backs up. So a lot is getting done. But we all pay for all of this in time and effort. And I'm hoping that our city can understand some of yes, that TxDOT does not work fast. I am not the great proponent of what TxDOT can do in a short period of time. They can't do anything fast. Most city contractors don't do a lot of things fast in any of the cities. Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Shannon Drickta, 9380 Cinchona Trail. We were talking a lot about water issues, and the subject was brought up about having an automated watering system. There is something that's called an advanced metering infrastructure, and most of the cities around us actually do have it. Schertz has it, a lot of the parts of San Antonio have it, and we have a lot of properties that have huge acreage that they aren't walking around. The guy who had property, he doesn't walk around his property line. And so people are able to look at their water bills throughout the month, and they will be flagged. And the mayor and the water department said it's $500,000. So why aren't we talking about that as a city, though? That needs to be a city decision, not two people saying it's $500,000, because I want to see how many times the water department is going out to look at meter readings, because that's cost too. And I also want to see how much manpower we're doing looking back at people's water records to see what their water usage is, because that's also a manpower cost. And if you're not gonna pay for it as a city, then I think you should allow residents to put in their own automated features so we can have a flag like we do with electricity and like we do with our air conditioning. You can do everything remotely, and all this, there are a lot of cities who are doing it. It shouldn't just be a conversation between two people that say it's gonna cost too much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once, twice, 3 times. Going to item number 14 now, closing out citizens' comments. Reports and comments from mayor and city council members, starting on the left side. Anything out of this list?
No, thank you.
Just one thing real quick. Garden Ridge Lions Club handed out Thanksgiving turkeys and food baskets to 40 families over Thanksgiving, and they'll be doing the same thing at Christmas to approximately 120 children in 40 families. And a lot of that's thanks to your support of our fish frying auction first Saturday of October. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, next is item 15, executive session. City council will recess this open meeting, reconvene in executive session. And there's going to be 3 items, but actually one item has 2 parts to it. Pursuant Texas Government Code Section 551071, consultation with attorney, and we need the engineer to attend this one, to seek legal advice, connection, deliberating the purchase, lease, exchange, or value real property and regarding related negotiations for city building projects and utility projects. Item B is pursuant Texas Government Code Section 974, personnel matters, and Section 551071, consultation with attorney, if necessary, to discuss the duties, responsibilities, potential corrective action related to an incident involving Eric Lohman and Brian Horn. And item C, pursuant Texas Government Code Section 551071, consultation with attorney, seek legal advice regarding requirements for Comal County Emergency Services and authority to contract for such services through an interlocal agreement. And number 2, to seek legal advice regarding settlement offer, potential litigation related to Republic Services Waste Management Agreement. We're going to recess at 8:32. And at 8:42, we will start the executive session.
Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Okay, reconvening city council meeting, December 4, 2019, and picking up on business item number 16. City council reconvene regular session on conclusion of executive session may recall any item posted for executive session for action as necessary. And I'll ask council, are there any actions you would like to propose as a result of your executive session?
Yes, I have one thing. I move to approve the settlement offer with Republic Services and authorize the city administrator to prepare the amendment to ordinance 143 to increase the trash pickup by $1.44 per household per month.
Okay, I have a motion from place 1 to authorize the city administrator to work the settlement offer with Republic and to work ordinance 143 to increase trash service in the city by $1.44 a month. Right? Yes. Okay, can I get a second? Second. I have place 3 with a second. Any further discussion or questions?
It's my understanding that that will not reduce the number of collections. Collections will remain twice a week per household.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Any other questions or comments? All right. Again, $1.44 per month in ordinance 143 with Republic. And can I, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Moving on to item number 17, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Place 4 of the motion. Can I get a second?
I second the motion to adjourn.
Place 5, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:40 PM.
Made it before 10. Great job. Great job. It's not even 10 o'clock.